Come, Amelia. Come and see with your own eyes how a real woman provides what you never could. A son. The sentence was handwritten in gold ink on the most luxurious wedding invitation of the year. Ethan, my ex-husband, thought this invitation would leave me weeping in a corner, mourning my fate as a discarded wife. He imagined I would shatter seeing him beside Chloe, the young woman now carrying his child. Unfortunately, Ethan forgot one thing. He didn't know I wasn't coming empty-handed. Tucked inside my expensive clutch was a voice recording that would turn his lavish party into a living hell and wipe that arrogant smirk right off his face. Heavy rain lashed against the windows of my 30th floor apartment, creating a monotonous but calming rhythm. The New York City sky that evening was a bruised purple, as if mourning in solidarity, or perhaps bracing for the storm to come. In my hand lay a thick, heavy, crimson velvet envelope that smelled of money. This wasn't just an invitation. It was a declaration of war, a proclamation of victory sent directly by Ethan, the man who had thrown my suitcases out of our brownstone 3 years ago. All because I was too busy with my career and hadn't yet given him a child. With the tip of a blood-red manicured nail, I traced the embossed names on the front, Ethan and Chloe. Their names stood together, arrogant and surrounded by floral ornaments stamped in real gold leaf. Ironic, so deeply ironic. Ethan, who once complained about my monthly grocery bills, was now squandering tens of thousands of dollars on a piece of paper destined for the trash. Slowly, I unfolded the invitation. The scent of a familiar masculine cologne wafted out Ethan's. A woody, tobacco fragrance that was once my favorite, the scent of the place I'd rest my head after a long day at work. Now, it just churned my stomach. My eyes weren't drawn to the date or the location, a ballroom at the plaza, but to a small, separate card tucked inside. Ethan's sharp, slanted handwriting was unmistakable. To Amelia, my overly ambitious ex-wife, I hope you come. Chloe would love to meet you. She wants you to see her growing belly. Come, learn how to be a complete woman. Don't die old and alone with no one to even say a prayer for you. I stood in silence. The ticking of the wall clock echoed loudly in the quiet room. If this had happened 2 years ago, I might have torn this card to shreds while screaming hysterically, then spent the night hugging a cheap bottle of wine and crying until my eyes were swollen shut. But the Amelia of today was not the Amelia of the past. The woman standing here was rebuilt from the rubble of devastation, brick by painful brick. I walked to the large mirror on my bedroom wall. The woman reflected there stared back at me with a sharp gaze. No tears, no sadness. Instead, the corners of my lips lifted slightly into a chilling, thin smile, the smile of a predator who has just watched her prey walk willingly into a trap. Ethan! Ethan! I murmured, my voice echoing off the walls. You think you invited a loser to your party? You think you're showing off? No, darling. You just opened the door to your own destruction. I tossed the invitation onto my king-sized bed as if it were a piece of trash. It was time to get ready. Tonight was a stage play, and I had to look perfect, more perfect than the bride herself. I stepped into my walk-in closet. Rows of designer gowns hung neatly, but my hand went straight to one special dress I had prepared a week ago. A black, body-conscious gown from a European designer. Its heavy silk would hug every curve of my body with lethal precision. The cut was elegant, modest even, but it had a slit high enough to make anyone hold their breath when I walked. A color often associated with mourning. And indeed, I was going to a funeral, the funeral of my ex-husband's pride, which would die tonight. I sat at my vanity. The small bulbs around the mirror lit up, illuminating my bare face, a face I'd maintained with skincare routines that cost more than Ethan's old monthly salary. I began by applying a thin layer of foundation, blurring my pores until my skin looked like flawless porcelain. I shaped my brows to be bold and sharp, giving an intimidating arch. Then, the most important part, the eyes. I swept a champagne-colored eyeshadow across my lids with a touch of smoky brown at the outer corners. A sharp, black liquid eyeliner was drawn into a fierce cat eye. This gaze had to pierce through anyone's defenses. Finally, the lips. I chose a matte lipstick in a deep burgundy, dark, mysterious, and dangerous. Once my face was done, I moved to my hair. My long, straight, glossy black hair was straightened to perfection, then pulled up into a high, severe ponytail. The style tightened the skin on my face, making my cheekbones more prominent and exposing my long neck. I left my bangs out, styling them to fall just above my eyebrows, framing my face with a touch of softness that still looked severe. I stood up and put on the black gown. The zipper slid up my back smoothly. The cool fabric clung to my skin, feeling like a second skin. I appraised myself. Perfect. I looked like a successful, independent, and expensive career woman. There wasn't a trace of a jilted ex-wife in sight. I put on long, dangling diamond earrings that nearly touched my shoulders, their sparkle blinding under the bedroom lights. Lastly, I picked up a pair of 5-inch red stiletto heels. The moment my feet slipped into them, my posture straightened automatically. The click, clack, click they made against the granite floor sounded like a judge's gavel, ready to deliver a verdict. Before leaving, I grabbed my smartphone. Tonight, this slim device was more dangerous than any gun. I opened my voice recordings, ensuring the file named Chloe's Surprise was still there, safe and ready to be played. My finger brushed across the screen as I felt my heart rate quicken slightly. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. The same sensation you get on a roller coaster as the cart slowly climbs to the peak before the free fall. I picked up a black clutch adorned with Swarovski crystals, slipped the phone inside, and snapped it shut with a decisive click. Tonight, New York would be my witness. Ethan wanted to flaunt his happiness. Fine, I would come. I would give him the loudest applause. But my applause would signal the beginning of the horror show that would become his life. I stepped out of my apartment and pressed the elevator button. The doors chimed open. My reflection stared back from the polished metal walls, beautiful, elegant, and deadly. Ethan and Chloe, enjoy the last few hours of your laughter. Because the moment I step into that ballroom, your lives will never be the same again. My phone buzzed as I got into the car. A text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. It was Ethan's mother, my ex-mother-in-law, whose tongue was as sharp as a razor blade. Don't embarrass my son tonight. If you're just coming to ask for money, you're better off staying home. I let out a small, dry, cold laugh. Don't worry, Barbara, I whispered to the screen. I don't need your money. In fact, I'm about to give your family a gift of priceless value. I pressed the accelerator. My black sedan sliced through the New York traffic, cutting through the curtain of rain toward the hotel where the party was being held. Every rotation of the wheels brought me closer to the moment of reckoning, but deep down, a small question lingered. Would Ethan realize my presence before it was too late, or would he be too busy worshiping his new wife's pregnant belly to notice the venomous snake slithering onto his stage? The rain outside grew heavier, as if the sky was trying to wash away the city's sins, and failing. My car's wipers moved frantically, creating a hypnotic rhythm. Behind the wheel, my eyes were focused on the wet asphalt reflecting the streetlights, but my mind drifted far away, pulled into a current of memories I should have buried at the bottom of the deepest ocean. This traffic was giving me too much time to think, time to remember why I was here tonight. 3 years ago, it wasn't raining that night, but it felt so cold, a cold that pierced my bones, not from the air conditioning, but from Ethan's stare. In the living room of our minimalist brownstone, my suitcases were lined up by the door like a defeated army. I need a wife, Amelia, not a money-making machine. Ethan's voice was flat, devoid of emotion, yet every syllable struck my chest like a sledgehammer. He stood with his arms crossed, looking at me as if I were a stranger who had overstayed her welcome. My mother was right. You're so busy chasing your career you've forgotten your purpose. This house is empty. It needs the sound of a baby crying, not the clacking of your laptop every night. I remembered how I begged that night. I remembered the salty taste of tears streaming into the corners of my mouth. I knelt, clutching the hem of his pants, promising to cut back my hours, promising to try another round of fertility treatments. But Ethan just sighed, then pushed my hand away with a rough, dismissive gesture. "It's too late," he said simply. "Chloe is pregnant." 2 words were all it took to kill me. Chloe, the intern at his firm, The girl who was nearly 10 years younger than me. The girl Ethan described as innocent, obedient, and fertile. That night, I was exiled from my own kingdom, replaced by a younger, more fruitful consort. My pride was shattered, ground into the marble floors I had chosen myself. The blare of a truck horn to my right jolted me back to the present. I blinked, gripping the steering wheel tighter. My breath came fast. The pain was still there, a permanent scar. But vengeance is a much more efficient fuel than sorrow. And fate, fate has a very dark sense of humor. A week ago, just 7 days before that cursed invitation arrived, I was having lunch with a client at a fine dining restaurant in Soho. The place was chic, with the calming scent of lemongrass and white tea. After the meeting, I went to the restroom to touch up my makeup. The restroom was more like a luxury hotel suite, black marble walls, gold-plated sinks, and dim, aesthetic lighting. It was empty. It was just me, reapplying my red lipstick in front of the large mirror. Suddenly, the door swung open. The sound of hurried footsteps and heels clicking loudly against the marble broke the silence. "Yeah, just be patient. I'm trying to find somewhere quiet." The voice was high-pitched, childish, and a little whiny. I knew that voice. It was Chloe's. Instinctively, my body tensed. But instead of turning to confront her, my gut told me to hide. In a flash, I slipped into the last stall and locked the door without a sound. My heart pounded against my ribs. I peeked through the small crack in the door. Chloe stood at the sink, her back to me. She was wearing a sweet pastel dress, her hair in loose waves. She was pressing a brand-new, expensive phone to her ear. Her reflection in the mirror looked panicked. "Mr. Harrison, please, don't just abandon me like this," Chloe hissed, her voice a half-whisper that carried perfectly in the room's acoustics. "Mr. Harrison?" My brow furrowed. That was Ethan's direct superior, the CEO of his company, an old lech famous for his wandering hands. "I'm 2 months late, sir, and you saw the DNA test results yesterday," Chloe whined, stomping her foot. "This is your baby, not Ethan's." My world stopped spinning. The clutch in my hand trembled. I clamped my other hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. "This is your baby, not Ethan's," the sentence repeated in my head like a broken record. "Are you crazy, telling me to get rid of it?" The doctor said, "My womb is weak. If I have an abortion, I might never be able to have children." Chloe was practically shouting now, all pretense of privacy gone. She started to cry, but it was the manipulative, crocodile tear crying she was known for. "You know how stupid Ethan is." He believed it the second I told him it was his. He was so happy, he's even marrying me next week. There was a short pause as she listened to the person on the other end. Then she wiped her tears away, her expression turning cunning. "Fine. If you won't take responsibility now because you're scared of that battle-axe wife of yours, I'll just marry Ethan. Let him be the father. Let him provide for your child. But you are going to transfer me $50,000 right now for additional wedding expenses, or I'm sending this ultrasound to Mrs. Harrison. I'm waiting for the transfer. Love you, mean it, bye." The call ended. Chloe took a deep breath, fluffed her hair in the mirror, and smiled at her reflection as if nothing had happened. She walked out of the restroom, leaving a cloying, sweet perfume in her wake. Inside the stall, I was frozen. My knees were weak, but in my hand, my phone was lit up. The screen showed a recording time of 3 minutes and 45 seconds. I had recorded everything. Every word, every panicked whisper, every disgusting confession. God doesn't sleep. He had just handed me a live grenade. Ethan cast me aside because I couldn't give him a child. And now, he was about to marry a woman carrying his own boss's baby, thinking it was his flesh and blood. How tragic, how utterly pathetic. Back in the present, my car pulled into the grand porte-cochere of the 5-star hotel. The light from a massive crystal chandelier in the lobby was dazzling. A valet in a sharp uniform jogged toward my car with an open umbrella. I put the car in park and took a deep breath, filling my lungs with courage. That memory was my weapon. The pain from 3 years ago was my shield. I glanced one last time at my phone on the passenger seat. The recording was safe. Ethan wanted to show off his victory. Oh no, Tonight, he wouldn't be winning anything but a lifetime supply of shame. The valet opened my car door. The humid night air greeted me. "Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to the wedding of Mr. Ethan and Miss Chloe," the attendant said politely. I gave him a wry smile as I swung one long leg out onto the pavement. "Good evening," I replied softly, my eyes fixed on the wide-open entrance to the ballroom. "Thank you for the welcome. Make sure you stick around. There's going to be a show you won't want to miss." I stood tall, smoothed my dress, and began to walk inside. But I stopped short when I saw who was standing by the guest reception table. Barbara, Ethan's mother. The old woman who had always looked down on me. She was laughing loudly, showing off a gold tooth to one of the guests, but her laughter died the moment her eyes met mine. Her eyes widened, her mouth falling slightly open, as if she'd seen a ghost. I didn't flinch. I walked straight toward her. This was just the beginning. The marble floor of the hotel corridor clicked in rhythm with my red heels. Click, clack, click. Each step sounded like the ticking of a doomsday clock, counting down the last moments of this family's happiness. Barbara was still frozen by the reception table. The gaudy, gold-sequined dress she wore was too flashy, looking cheap under the chandelier's glow. Her neck and wrists were laden with chunky gold jewelry, the classic look of someone screaming to the world they'd just come into new money. I didn't slow my pace. I straightened my back, lifted my chin a little higher. A sweet smile, the kind I reserved for difficult clients, was plastered on my lips. "Good evening, Barbara," I said softly, as I closed the distance between us. My voice was calm, a stark contrast to her face, which was tense as if she'd seen a ghost. Barbara blinked, her eyes scanning my appearance from head to toe. A flash of envy she couldn't hide flickered in her eyes as they landed on my clutch and the diamond earrings dancing by my ears. She had expected me to arrive with swollen eyes and shabby clothes, but what stood before her was a woman who looked like she could buy the self-respect of her entire family. "Amelia!" she hissed, her voice catching in her throat. Then her mask of arrogance snapped back into place. She folded her arms across her chest, her chin jutting out. "I didn't think you'd have the nerve to show up. Or are you here to beg for more alimony?" The young women at the reception desk, Ethan's cousins who used to borrow my designer bags without asking, now looked down, avoiding my gaze. They nudged each other, whispering frantically. I let out a small, polite laugh, as if she'd just told a witty joke at a cocktail party. "You have such a sense of humor, Barbara," I replied casually, reaching into my clutch. I pulled out a thick envelope. Not money, of course, just a stack of toilet paper folded to feel substantial. A subtle, symbolic insult. "I'm here to celebrate Ethan's happiness. This is just a small token of my affection. I hope it's enough to buy milk for your future grandchild." Barbara snatched the envelope from my hand, her eyes gleaming with greed as she felt its thickness. "Good. Glad you know your place. Go on in. Don't cause a scene. A lot of important people are in there, including Mr. Harrison, Ethan's boss. Don't embarrass us." That name made the corner of my mouth twitch. Mr. Harrison. Oh, Barbara, if only you knew how close your grandchild already was to Mr. Harrison. "Of course, Barbara. I promise to be very memorable," I whispered, then walked past her. An usher opened the massive double doors to the grand ballroom. The cool air conditioning, mixed with the scent of thousands of tuberoses and lilies, hit my skin. A live orchestra playing romantic jazz filled the air. The room was magnificent. High ceilings were draped in white and gold fabric. Hundreds of guests milled about, wine glasses clinking, polite laughter echoing. But the moment I stepped onto the red carpet, the atmosphere shifted. One head turned, then 2, then 10. Like a domino effect, a hush spread from the entrance toward the center of the room. The orchestra continued to play, but human conversation ceased. I walked slowly, savoring every second. My black gown seemed to absorb the light, making my silhouette sharp and stark against the sea of guests dressed in pastels. The whispers began, hissing like snakes in the grass. "Who is that? Is she an actress?" "Are you kidding? That's Amelia, Ethan's ex-wife." "No way. She looks so different. She used to be so plain now. Wow, she looks incredible." Look at her dress. That's the new Alexander McQueen. That's a $50,000 dress. Poor Chloe. She can't compete with that aura. The words flowed into my ears like honey. I didn't look left or right. My gaze was fixed straight ahead, on the magnificent stage at the far end of the room. There they stood. Ethan looked dashing in an ivory tuxedo, laughing loudly as he greeted a VIP guest, clearly proud of his life's achievements. Beside him, Chloe sat on a gilded, throne-like chair. She wore an enormous ball gown covered in Swarovski crystals. It was too much, too over the top. She looked like a runaway wedding cake. Her hands never stopped caressing her slightly protruding belly, showing it off to every guest who came to greet them. I continued to walk, parting the crowd. People instinctively moved aside, giving me a clear path, as if I were a queen inspecting her subjects. I paused near the VIP buffet table, taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray. He stared at me, his mouth agape. I took a small sip of the golden liquid, wetting my dry throat. My eyes scanned the VIP area in front of the stage. Ah, there he was. At the frontmost round table sat a middle-aged man with a potbelly and a shiny bald head, Mr. Harrison. He was laughing uproariously, a cigar in one hand. His other arm was draped over the back of his wife's chair, a thin, stern-faced woman who looked bored to tears. Mr. Harrison, the biological father of the fetus Chloe, was currently stroking on stage. The scene was so surreal. 3 con artists gathered in one room, celebrating a lie they had woven themselves. And I was the one holding the scissors, ready to cut the thread. I set the barely touched glass down on a table. It was time. I began walking again, this time toward the line to greet the couple on stage. The line was long, but as soon as people realized who was standing behind them, they suddenly urged me to go ahead. They wanted to see the drama. They were thirsty for conflict. I could see the wild curiosity in their eyes. Now I stood at the foot of the stage steps. The stage was high, decorated with thousands of imported white roses. The spotlights were blinding. Ethan was busy laughing with a colleague when he noticed the shift in mood. He saw his friends stop laughing and stare toward the stairs with tense expressions. He frowned, confused, and followed their gaze. His head slowly turned downwards, and that's when our eyes met. Time seemed to slow. The smile on Ethan's face didn't vanish instantly, but it froze. Then it cracked, slowly, like glass struck by a stone. His eyes widened, his mouth fell slightly open, but no sound came out. He stared at me in disbelief. Perhaps he didn't recognize the stunning woman in the black gown as the same one he used to yell at about grocery money. Beside him, Chloe turned to see what was wrong. Her perfectly made-up face went pale. The hand that was caressing her belly now gripped Ethan's arm, her long, fake nails digging into the fabric. I smiled. Not a sweet smile, a warning. I lifted my gown slightly and took the first step. 1 step. Ethan took a step back, as if pushed by an unseen force. 2 steps. Barbara, down below, began to whisper frantically to her husband, "Ethan, get her out of here." But her voice was drowned out by the orchestra music, which suddenly felt menacing. 3 steps. I was on the stage now, on their level. I walked closer, extending my right hand for a handshake, while my left hand clutched the phone inside my clutch. "Congratulations, Ethan," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was crystal clear to them. "Your wife is beautiful, and her belly looks so healthy." Ethan stared at me, a mixture of fear and anger in his eyes. His jaw tightened. He leaned in close, whispering with a threatening, trembling voice, "What the hell are you doing here, dressed like that? Trying to embarrass me?" My eyes flashed. "Embarrass you? Oh no, Ethan. I just want everyone to know how generous you are, so willing to take in what another man left behind." Ethan's grip on my hand tightened, squeezing the bones until they ached. But in front of hundreds of pairs of eyes and the flashing cameras of the photographers, we were locked in a sickening charade. He bared his white teeth in a fake smile, one designed to hide the panic creeping into his eyes. "Smile," Ethan hissed through his clenched teeth, his voice low, audible only to the 3 of us on the stage. The faint smell of alcohol mixed with fear wafted from his breath. "Don't you dare cause a scene, Amelia. The photographer is taking pictures. If they turn out bad because of your sour face, I'll make your life even more miserable." I didn't wince. I didn't even try to pull my hand away. Instead, I squeezed back with equal force, my red nails pressing gently into his cold, sweaty palm. "A scene?" I whispered back, maintaining the elegant smile that was making my cheeks ache. "Who's causing a scene? I'm just a polite guest. You're the one who looks like you're about to have a heart attack." Chloe, who had been sitting on her throne, suddenly stood up. Her massive wedding gown rustled loudly, taking up nearly half the stage. She slid her arm through Ethan's, as if declaring ownership. Her baby doll face was arranged in a sickeningly sweet expression. "Ethan, honey, that's enough," she cooed, but her eyes shot me a sharp, condescending glare. "Poor Amelia is probably just nervous. I mean, she's never been to a party this extravagant in her whole life. Your first wedding was so simple, wasn't it?" Chloe let out a little giggle, covering her mouth with a hand that showcased a diamond ring I knew was bought on Ethan's maxed-out credit card. "Besides," she continued, now stroking her belly with a slow, provocative circular motion, showing it off right in front of my face, "Amelia must be so sad seeing my stomach. Look at this, Amelia. This is life, something your barren womb could never produce." My blood boiled. The insult was primal, ancient. Chloe hadn't just attacked my pride, she had attacked my womanhood. Under the hot stage lights, I could see the thick powder on her face beginning to crack around her smile lines. She thought she'd won. She thought her pregnancy was her trump card. Ethan laughed, a loud, obnoxious laugh, intentionally amplified so the guests in the front rows could hear. "You're right, honey," he said, finally releasing my hand with a shove. He wrapped his arm tightly around Chloe's shoulders. "Sorry, Amelia. We don't mean to show off. It's just that, well, the truth hurts sometimes. Look on the bright side. Now you're free. You can work 24/7 without anyone bothering you. Isn't that what you always wanted? To be a successful, lonely career woman." A photographer moved closer, signaling for us to pose together. "Okay, Ethan, Chloe, and the guest. A little closer, please. Big smiles." Ethan suddenly had a wicked idea. His eyes lit up with malice. He gestured to Chloe. "Honey, kiss me on the cheek. Let Amelia see how romantic we are. It'll be a little souvenir for her." Shamelessly, in front of hundreds of guests and me standing just a few feet away, Chloe stood on her tiptoes and planted a wet kiss on Ethan's cheek. Click. The camera flash immortalized the moment my ex-husband and his new wife tried to grind my face into the dirt. The guests below began to whisper again. "Wow, Amelia has some serious nerve to stand there and take that. Ethan is being such a jerk. He's just rubbing it in her face, and Chloe's mouth is just as nasty. I guess they're perfect for each other." Ethan released Chloe and turned back to me, feeling triumphant. He thought he had successfully made me the object of pity for the entire room. "Okay, you can go down now," he said, waving his hand as if shooing away a fly. "Don't hang around too long. You're ruining the view. The food in the VIP section is excellent. Eat a lot. It's free. Maybe it'll improve your mood." I took a deep breath, letting the cool air extinguish the fire raging in my chest. I couldn't lose it now. Emotion was the enemy of a perfect plan. If I got angry, I would look like a crazy ex-wife. I had to stay elegant. I had to stay cold. Slowly, I took a step back, but not to go down the stairs. My eyes were fixed on an object standing next to the bride's throne, a standing microphone, left over from the ceremony and not yet cleared by the sound crew. I looked at Ethan, then at Chloe, who was still smirking while holding her belly. "Thank you for the advice, Ethan." "Chloe," I said, my voice loud enough for them to hear without the mic, "but before I go down and enjoy the free food you're so proud of, may I offer one final gift?" Ethan frowned, suspicious. "A gift? What kind of gift? Don't try anything." "It's not a thing," I replied quickly, walking calmly toward the microphone stand. "Just a prayer, and maybe a song. A sweet farewell to our past. You used to love it when I sang." Ethan froze. He remembered I used to be the lead singer of a band in college. His massive ego probably thought I was about to sing a sad heartbreak song, further proving how I wasn't over him. That would only feed his narcissistic need to be adored. He looked at the MC, who was standing bewildered at the side of the stage, and gave an arrogant nod. "Give her the mic!" He commanded the sound crew. Then he looked back at me with a condescending smirk. "Fine, sing. Entertain us. Just pretend you're the hired help for the night." Fool. Such a fool. Arrogance is the most effective blindfold. I reached for the microphone stand. The cool metal touched my palm, giving me a tangible sense of power. I lifted the mic from its holder, gripping it tightly. The long black cable trailed behind me like a snake's tail. I turned to face the audience. 1,000 eyes were now on me. A follow spot moved to illuminate me, making my black gown shimmer dramatically. In the corner of my eye, I saw Mr. Harrison at the VIP table, still happily chewing his steak, oblivious to the fact that his own doom was about to be announced. I lifted the microphone to my lips. A brief hum of feedback echoed through the room, silencing everyone. "Test. 1, 2. My voice came through the speakers, clear and crisp, filling every corner of the giant ballroom. The sound system was expensive. Good. Very good. It meant not a single word would be missed. I glanced back at Ethan and Chloe, who were now sitting comfortably in their thrones like a king and queen awaiting entertainment from their court jester. I smiled at them. A sincere smile. Sincere because I knew this was the last time I would see them sitting on those plush chairs. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice soft yet commanding, making even the waiters pause their work. "I apologize for interrupting your dinner. My name is Amelia. I'm the ex-wife of that handsome groom over there." Silence. The tension in the room began to climb. Tonight is very special. We're celebrating love, luxury, and, I gestured to Chloe's stomach with my free hand, the miracle of new life. Ethan is so proud of this pregnancy. Chloe is so happy. Ethan beamed with pride, giving a little wave to the audience. Chloe blushed demurely. "But," I continued, my tone shifting, becoming lower, more serious, "there's one thing that doesn't feel right to me. Ethan said he invited me to witness his happiness, but I don't think that happiness is complete without honesty. Am I right?" Ethan's smile began to fade, his brow furrowed. He was starting to sense that something was very, very wrong. I calmly reached into my clutch and pulled out my smartphone. The auxiliary cable from the sound system was lying coiled near a monitor speaker at my feet. With a casual movement, I bent down and picked it up. "Amelia, what are you doing?" Ethan's voice was panicked now. He was half standing from his chair. I didn't answer. I plugged the cable into the adapter on my phone. A rough, crackling sound hissed from the large speakers, making a few guests cover their ears. "I didn't bring an expensive gift," I said again, looking directly into Mr. Harrison's eyes at the VIP table. The bald man stopped chewing, his fork frozen midair. "I only brought a recorded prayer, a beautiful confession of sin. Listen closely now, darling." My index finger hovered over the phone's screen. The bright green play button glowed, daring me to press it. "Amelia, stop!" Ethan screamed, finally realizing the danger. He lunged from his chair, running toward me. Too late. I pressed the button. "Mr. Harrison, please, don't just abandon me like this. I'm 2 months late, sir, and you saw the DNA test results yesterday." The sound exploded from the massive JBL speakers hanging in the 4 corners of the ballroom. It was loud, clear, and deafening. It was no longer a desperate whisper. It was Chloe's high-pitched, whiny voice, amplified by 1,000 watts, slamming into the eardrums of every person in that room like a sonic bomb. Ethan, who had been lunging to grab my phone, froze mid-stride. His feet seemed to be nailed to the stage floor. His outstretched hand was just inches from my face. His eyes, which had been blazing with anger, now blinked vacantly. He heard that voice. He recognized that voice. His brain was struggling to process the impossible information, fighting to deny the reality that had just slapped him across the face. The guests, who had been enjoying their appetizers, stopped chewing in unison. Spoons and forks clattered onto ceramic plates, creating a dissonant chorus of shock. A suffocating silence fell over the room, filled only by the merciless recording. "This is your baby, not Ethan's. Are you crazy, telling me to get rid of it?" The doctor said my womb is weak. The desperation in the recorded voice made it sound so real, so honest. How ironic. Chloe's honesty only surfaced when she was planning her greatest lie. I stood perfectly still beside the microphone stand, my face a cold, expressionless mask. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to cry. I just needed to let Chloe sing for her own husband. On her throne, the real Chloe, wearing her $1,000 gown, leaped to her feet. The bouquet of white roses in her hand fell, rolling across the stage floor. Her glowing, rosy face was now as white as a sheet. Her mouth hung open, her eyes darting around wildly, as if hoping this was just a nightmare. She looked at me with a pleading, horrified expression, the look of an animal that realizes its neck is on the chopping block. But the recording wasn't over. The best part was just beginning. You know how stupid Ethan is. He believed it the second I told him it was his. He was so happy. He's even marrying me next week. Bam. That line landed like a punch to Ethan's gut. I could see the exact moment his soul shattered. His strong body wavered. He stumbled back a step, his legs turning to jelly. The handsome face he had paraded so arrogantly moments before completely collapsed. A deep flush crawled up his neck and flooded his face, not from embarrassment, but from unbearable humiliation. The word "stupid Ethan" echoed off the ballroom walls, laughing at him. The entire room erupted. "Oh my God, that's Chloe's voice. It's Mr. Harrison's baby?" "Jesus!" Ethan got played. The whispers turned into an angry buzz. The smartphone cameras that had been recording for Instagram stories were now documenting a public execution. Flashes went off like mad, illuminating Ethan's broken face and Chloe's terrified one. I slowly turned my gaze to the VIP table. Table number 1, where the baby's father sat. The scene there was just as chaotic. Mr. Harrison was choking on his expensive wine. Red liquid sprayed from his mouth, staining the white tablecloth and his silk shirt. He coughed violently, his face turning purple. His eyes bulged, darting from the speakers to his wife. Mrs. Harrison, Catherine Harrison, the woman known as the Dragon Lady, the majority shareholder of the company where Ethan worked, did not scream. She did not cry. She sat perfectly upright, terrifyingly calm, but her hand holding the steak knife was gripping the silver handle so tightly that her knuckles were white. Her gaze was fixed straight ahead, empty yet deadly, piercing through the back of her trembling husband. The recording reached its climax. "Fine. I'll just marry Ethan. Let him be the father. Let him provide for your child. But you are going to transfer me $50,000 right now." Chloe's little laugh on the recording provided the perfect, chilling finale. Click. The recording ended. Silence once again consumed the ballroom. But this time, it was a heavy, dense, and dangerous silence. The air before a hurricane makes landfall. Ethan slowly turned his body. His movements were stiff, like a broken robot. He wasn't looking at me anymore. His eyes were locked on one person, Chloe. Ethan's breathing was harsh and ragged, audible through the still-live microphone near me. His chest heaved. The veins in his neck and temples bulged, pulsing grotesquely. "Ethan!" Chloe whimpered, her voice small and trembling, lost in the vast room. She stumbled backward, bumping into her throne and nearly falling. "Honey, that's edited. It's AI. I swear, Ethan. Amelia's lying. She's using AI to destroy us." She tried to deny it with the most idiotic excuse she could conjure. Tears began to smudge her mascara, creating black streaks down her pale cheeks. Ethan didn't answer. He took a step forward, then another. "Edited?" His voice came out as a hoarse rasp, as if his throat were full of sand. That whiny voice. The way you laugh. The way you call him sir. "I know that voice by heart, Chloe. I hear it in my sleep. Honey, please, just listen to me." "Shut up!" Ethan's roar was so loud it caused a shriek of feedback from the sound system. He grabbed a floral decoration stand next to him and slammed it to the floor. Crash! The crystal vase shattered, sending water and rose petals scattering around their feet. Female guests screamed. Some stood up, ready to flee. Hotel security started running in from the side doors but hesitated to come onto the stage. Ethan lunged forward and grabbed both of Chloe's shoulders, shaking the pregnant woman so violently that the tiara on her head went askew. "So what was I all this time? Huh?" he screamed in her face, spittle flying from his mouth. "A clown? A garbage can for my boss's filth? Answer me." "You're hurting me, Ethan, it hurts!" Chloe cried hysterically, trying to break his grip. "My stomach! Our baby! Our baby!" Ethan laughed, a laugh that sounded like a madman. "That's not my baby. That's the child of that old bastard." Ethan pointed a trembling finger toward the VIP table, toward Mr. Harrison, who was now trying to sneak out a side door, abandoning his wife. But before Mr. Harrison could escape, the sound of shattering glass stopped him. Smash! Catherine Harrison was on her feet. She had just thrown her wineglass to the floor. She wasn't looking at the stage. She was staring at her husband's cowardly, hunched back. "Sit down, David," Mrs. Harrison said. Her voice wasn't loud, it didn't use a microphone, but its authority sent a chill through the entire room. "The show isn't over. Where do you think you're going?" Mr. Harrison froze. He turned slowly, his face slick with cold sweat. He knew his wife's wrath was far more terrifying than Ethan's rampage. On the stage, I slowly unplugged my phone. My job as the fuse lighter was done. Now I just had to step back and watch their world burn. I began to move toward the dark edge of the stage, letting the spotlight fully illuminate the family drama as it shattered into a million pieces. But as I was about to descend the stairs, Ethan suddenly turned to me. His eyes were red, wet, and filled with desperation. His rage at Chloe momentarily shifted to a pleading look in my direction. "Amelia," he called out, his voice cracking, "tell me this is a lie. Tell me you were just trying to prank me." I stopped. I looked at my ex-husband, the man I once loved, the man who threw me away for the woman now sobbing at his feet. I brought my lips close to the microphone one last time. "A lie?" I asked softly. "Ethan, didn't you say it yourself in your invitation? Come, see a perfect woman give me a child. Well, now you've seen it. Your boss's child looks very healthy, don't you think?" Ethan collapsed. His knees hit the stage floor. He let out a raw, guttural roar, a long, agonizing scream of a man whose masculinity and pride had just been flayed alive in public. And in the middle of that chaos, Catherine Harrison began walking toward the stage. Her steps were calm, but her gaze promised a swift and merciless execution. Mrs. Harrison's footsteps were heavy, climbing the stage steps one by one with a slow, deadly tempo. Her heels struck the wooden stage in time with the frantic heartbeats of hundreds of breathless spectators. She didn't run or scream. She walked with the placid demeanor of an executioner long accustomed to severing heads without soiling her own attire. As she passed me, I caught her scent not floral perfume like Chloe's, but a sharp, cold, and intimidating musk. She paused beside me, looking at me from behind her gold-rimmed glasses. There was no smile, just a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement. "Good work. Now step aside. I'll handle the cleanup." I backed away, ceding the main stage to the apex predator. Ethan was still on his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked up at Mrs. Harrison's approach with a flicker of false hope. In his panicked, small mind, he probably thought she would save him, or at least sympathize with him as a fellow victim of betrayal. "Ma'am, Mrs. Harrison." Ethan crawled closer, his trembling hand trying to grasp the hem of her silk dress. "You heard it. I'm the victim here. I was tricked by that monster Chloe." Mrs. Harrison didn't look down. She didn't even glance at him. She just flicked her dress slightly, as if avoiding a piece of filth. She continued walking straight toward Chloe, who was now huddled in the corner of her throne like a wet rat. Chloe looked up, her eyes swollen, mascara streaming down her pale cheeks, seeing Mrs. Harrison towering over her. Chloe's nerve completely failed. Mrs. Harrison, I'm so sorry. I can explain," she whimpered. Mrs. Harrison held out her hand, not to strike but expectantly. Microphone, she stated flatly. A terrified sound tech scurried onto the stage, handed her a wireless mic, and fled. Mrs. Harrison gripped the microphone, but didn't speak immediately. She let a low hum of feedback fill the room, letting the tension choke every guest. Then, her sharp eyes scanned the room, landing on her husband, who was still frozen near the side exit. "David Harrison," she called, her low tone vibrating through the room. "Get up here, now." David flinched. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. He didn't want to move, but his wife's gaze was an absolute command. With shuffling, defeated steps, like a condemned man walking to the gallows, he crossed the room and climbed the stairs. The wedding stage was now an open-air courtroom. On the left, a broken Ethan. In the middle, a trembling Chloe. And now on the right, a red-faced, humiliated David Harrison. "David," Chloe sobbed, grabbing his suit jacket. "David, help me. Tell them, you promised you'd take responsibility." David's reaction was shocking. Panicked and terrified of his wife, he shoved Chloe's hand away violently. "Don't touch me," he yelled, his voice cracking. He pointed a shaking finger at her. "You're insane! You trapped me! I never got you pregnant! It's all lies!" Chloe gaped, stunned that the man who had showered her with gifts and sweet nothings was now discarding her like trash. "Lies?" she shrieked. "You paid for my apartment! You sent me money every month! You told me your wife was old and boring!" Slap. The sound came not from Mrs. Harrison, but from her husband. David slapped Chloe across the face so hard her head snapped to the side. The sound was horrifyingly loud through the microphone. Mrs. Harrison had deliberately held close. "Watch your mouth, you whore!" David screamed, trying to appear righteous. "Catherine, darling, don't believe her. You know I'm loyal. This must be a scheme by Ethan and this woman to extort us." Ethan, still on his knees, looked up in shock. "Me, sir? Don't you dare try to pin this on me. You slept with my fiancé. Why would I be the one extorting you?" It was total chaos. The two men who had been superior and subordinate were now at each other's throats like feral dogs fighting over a bone, while the woman at the center of it all wept on the floor. I stood in the shadows at the corner of the stage, arms crossed. This was more satisfying than any thriller. They were devouring each other. Their masks of dignity and loyalty had crumbled, revealing their true, ugly, cowardly faces. Suddenly, Mrs. Harrison's laugh cut through the noise. It was a dry, cold, piercing sound. Instantly, David and Ethan fell silent. All eyes turned back to her. "Are you finished with your little drama?" she asked coolly, looking at her husband with undisguised disgust. David, do you think I'm a fool? Did you think I didn't know where $50,000 of company money was going every month? Did you think my auditors were blind?" David's face went white, his knees buckled. "Catherine, Silence, she cut him off, stepping closer. "I kept quiet to protect the family name. But tonight, you humiliated me in front of my colleagues, my employees, and the public." She reached into her expensive handbag and pulled out a manila envelope. "This is our divorce petition," she said calmly, tossing it at his chest. The file fell, its contents scattering. "Sign it tomorrow, and remember our prenuptial agreement, David. The infidelity clause. You walk out of my house with only the clothes on your back. All assets, all shares, the cars, the properties, everything is in my name." David collapsed, slumping to the floor beside Chloe, two disgraced figures with nothing left. Seeing this, a flicker of hope appeared in Ethan's eyes. His cunning mind started working again. His boss was finished. Mrs. Harrison was now in total control. If he could just get on her good side, maybe he could salvage his career, maybe even get a promotion. Ethan scrambled to his feet, smoothing his wrinkled suit. He put on his most pathetic face, crocodile tears welling in his eyes. "Mrs. Harrison," he said, his voice trembling artfully. He approached her, bowing deeply. "You are a truly magnificent woman. Your decision is absolutely right. A man like him doesn't deserve you." He swallowed, then pressed on. "Ma'am, I am also a victim here. I was completely deceived by Chloe and Mr. Harrison. I swear I knew nothing. Please, ma'am, don't fire me. I promise I will work twice as hard for you. I will be loyal to your company." He tried to take her hand to kiss it, the ultimate sycophant's gesture. Mrs. Harrison didn't pull her hand away. She let him hold it for a moment. Ethan smiled, thinking his ploy had worked. He shot me a triumphant glance, as if to say, "See, I can still survive this." But then, Mrs. Harrison raised the microphone to her lips again. She looked deep into Ethan's eyes and smiled a smile more terrifying than any demon's. "Ethan, Ethan," she cooed, like a mother chiding her child. "Do you really think my company needs a manager who can't even tell the difference between his own child and someone else's?" Ethan's smile froze. Mrs. Harrison snatched her hand back and wiped it on her dress as if she'd just touched something rotten. "You're fired," she said, her voice a whisper that boomed through the speakers. "Effective immediately. Make sure you clear out your desk before security drags you out tomorrow morning." Ethan staggered back as if he'd been shot. His world went dark. A cheating fiancée, pregnant with another man's child, a humiliating ex-wife, fired from his job, broke from the wedding, career over. Mrs. Harrison wasn't done. She turned to me, standing in the shadows. "Amelia," she called. I stepped forward into the light. "Yes, ma'am?" "You're a marketing manager at our competitor's firm, are you not?" she asked loudly. I nodded, confused. "Be in my office tomorrow morning at 9, she commanded, making sure everyone, especially Ethan, could hear. "The general manager position just opened up. It requires someone smart, meticulous, and with guts. Someone like you. I'm offering you 3 times your current salary. What do you say?" Ethan's eyes bulged. He stared at me, then at Mrs. Harrison, then back at me. This wasn't just a defeat, it was a massacre. I smiled sweetly, so sweetly, at the living corpse that was Ethan. "That's a very tempting offer, Mrs. Harrison," I replied calmly. "No!" Ethan screamed. "That's my position. Amelia, you can't do this." He charged toward me, his fists clenched, his face a mask of vengeful rage. His sanity was gone. He was going to hit me. We were only a few feet apart. I didn't move. Suddenly, a black shadow shot out from the side. Thwack! Ethan's body was thrown backward, flying through the air for a split second before hitting the hard stage floor with a sickening thud. His jaw had just met the massive fist of a man in a black suit who had appeared from nowhere. Fresh blood sprayed from Ethan's mouth, staining his proud ivory tuxedo. The man who hit him, Mrs. Harrison's head of personal security, stood firmly in front of me, a human wall. "Mind your manners in front of Mrs. Harrison," the man growled, his voice a low rumble. I didn't even blink. I watched Ethan groaning on the floor, clutching a possibly broken jaw. He tried to get up but slipped on the scattered rose petals and spilled water from the vase he himself had smashed. "Clean up this mess," Mrs. Harrison ordered her security chief, not even glancing at Ethan. "I don't want to see these traitors' faces in my building ever again." She paused, then looked at the pale-faced hotel manager cowering in the corner. "And make sure the bill for all damages, property and otherwise, is sent to Ethan's personal account. Do not charge a single dollar to the company." Ethan's swollen eyes flew wide open. The pain in his wallet was suddenly sharper than the pain in his jaw. The wedding cost a fortune, money he was counting on from a company bonus, and gifts from Mr. Harrison to cover. Without them, he was ruined worse. He was buried in debt for life. "Ma'am, please," he tried to speak, but the blood in his mouth made him choke. "I don't have that kind of money." "Your salary?" Mrs. Harrison cut in coldly. "Oh, you forgot. You're unemployed now." She turned her back on him and descended the stage with the grace of a queen who had just passed sentence. She stopped in front of me, patted my shoulder gently, and said, "My office, 9 a.m. Don't be late." Then she was gone. After her departure, the room descended into a wild chaos. Guests were no longer whispering, they were openly pointing, laughing, and recording. Instant karma. "My Instagram Live is blowing up." Zoom in on Chloe's face. Her makeup is a disaster. Chloe was still on the floor, hiding her face with the tattered remains of her bouquet as guests swarmed the stage like hungry paparazzi. David Harrison had vanished, having escaped through a service exit, leaving these two fools to face the humiliation alone. And then came the final act of this tragic comedy. Barbara, Ethan's mother, scrambled onto the stage, gasping for breath. I thought she was going to comfort her son. I was wrong. In this family, money always screamed louder than blood. "Ethan!" she shrieked, shaking her son's limp body. What did she mean? We have to pay for all this? Where will we get the money? We mortgaged the house for the down payment on this venue. Mom, it hurts, Ethan groaned. You think you're in pain? She screeched, beating his chest with her fists. You told me Chloe was rich. You said she was some big shot's mistress with lots of money. How did this happen? We're going to be homeless, Ethan. Homeless. Then, Barbara's gaze fell on Chloe. Her eyes turned predatory. This is all your fault, you damned girl. She lunged at Chloe, grabbing handfuls of her elaborately styled hair. Chloe's imitation diamond tiara flew off and clattered pitifully on the floor. Let go of me! It hurts! Chloe screamed. Give me back my son's money, you tramp. You cheap liar, getting pregnant with another man's baby and tricking my son into marrying you. Barbara spat directly in Chloe's face. The scene was grotesque. A mother-in-law and daughter-in-law who had been praising each other an hour ago were now wrestling on the floor like alley cats. The wedding dress was torn, hair was flying, and curses filled the air. The guests cheered them on. I took a long, deep breath. The air, thick with expensive perfume, fear, and the metallic tang of blood, was making me nauseous. I had seen what I came to see. Their destruction wasn't just financial or social, it was the complete annihilation of their family bonds. I smoothed my bangs, and with calm, measured steps, I turned and walked away. My back was straight, my mission was complete. But just as I took my third step, a cold, trembling hand grabbed my ankle. I stopped and looked down. It was Ethan. He had crawled across the floor, dragging his broken body just to reach me. His face was a wreck, but the most terrifying part was his eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a black hole of utter despair. Amelia, he rasped, his fingers clutching my stiletto. Don't go! Help me! I stared down at him as if he were an insect on my shoe. Help you? Help you with what, Ethan? Don't you have a perfect wife and a loving mother? They're right over there. I gestured with my chin toward the brawling women. He shook his head weakly, tears mixing with the blood on his face. They're insane. I have no one left. Amelia, only you. You're my wife. We can fix this. I'll divorce Chloe right now. We can start over. You still love me, right? You came here because you still care. The delusion was breathtaking. He thought my arrival was proof of love. He thought after everything he had done, I would melt at the sight of his suffering. A small laugh escaped my lips. Ethan, Ethan. I crouched down, bringing my face close to his battered one so he could clearly see the absolute lack of pity in my eyes. You've misunderstood. I didn't come here to win you back. I don't pick up trash once it's been thrown out. I reached out as if to caress his cheek. He closed his eyes, leaning in, expecting a tender touch. Instead, my hand moved down and pried his fingers off my shoe, one by one, with firm, undeniable force. I came here, I whispered directly into his ear, for one reason only, to make sure that when you finally went to hell, you knew exactly who pushed you. I stood up, shaking out my gown. Goodbye, Ethan. Enjoy your new life as the father of your boss's child. Oh, wait, you're not even the father. You're just nothing. I walked away, descending the stairs. But just as my foot touched the red carpet below, a piercing scream from Chloe stopped me. It wasn't a scream of pain from the fight, but a pure, terrifying scream of physical agony. My stomach! It hurts! Blood! Oh God, blood! I whipped around. On the stage, Chloe was clutching her lower abdomen. Between her legs, behind the white fabric of her gown, a dark red stain was spreading with alarming speed, pooling on the floor beneath her. The red spread like spilled ink on a paper towel, dark and viscous, its coppery smell instantly overpowering the scent of flowers in the room. In seconds, the stage of luxury had become a gruesome crime scene. "Blood! Ethan! There's so much blood!" Chloe's shrieks were ear-splitting, mixed with pure, terrified sobs. The chaos in the room exploded. "Oh my God, she's hemorrhaging. Somebody call 911. Stop filming, you ghouls. Help her. Jesus Christ, she's having a miscarriage." The guests shouted over one another. Many rushed forward, their phones held high, zooming in to capture the tragedy. They were no longer guests, they were vultures, documenting fresh carrion. I stood frozen at the foot of the stage, my hand gripping my clutch so tightly my knuckles were white. There was no victory in this, but I didn't move to help. My feet were rooted to the spot, weighed down by the knowledge that this was no longer my battle. This was the universe cleaning up its own mess in its own brutal way. On the stage, Barbara's reaction was the most chilling. She didn't rush to Chloe's side. She scrambled away, lifting her gown to avoid the spreading pool of blood. Her eyes were fixed on the red stain, not with sorrow, but with the horror of financial loss. "The grandchild, the boss's grandchild," Barbara muttered. Her voice picked up by a fallen microphone. "If the baby dies, we get nothing. Ethan, do something. That's our ticket." Monstrous. Utterly monstrous. Ethan, who had been whimpering at my feet, looked up at his mother with a blank stare. His mind had short-circuited. He looked at Chloe, writhing in pain, at his mother screaming about money, at the guests filming. "Ticket," he whispered, his voice barely audible. He let out a small, insane laugh. "A ticket to hell, Mom." Finally, hotel medics and security pushed through the crowd. They swarmed Chloe, checking her pulse, trying to assess the bleeding. Her face was ashen, her lips turning blue. She was losing consciousness. "It hurts. So cold," she whimpered, her eyes searching for Ethan. But he just sat there, 3 meters away, a broken statue. "She's losing too much blood. We need to get her to a hospital now," one of the medics commanded. They lifted her onto a stretcher. The magnificent gown, once her symbol of pride, was now a dead weight, soaked in blood. A medic had to cut through the expensive fabric with trauma shears to get her properly onto the gurney. The sound of ripping silk was the final, tragic note in her fake fairy tale. As they carried her past Ethan, Chloe's limp hand brushed his shoulder, leaving a smear of blood on his white jacket. He didn't react. He let them take her away, past a sea of jeering faces and out a service exit. Barbara collapsed onto Chloe's vacant throne, wailing, "It's over. Everything is over. My house, my money." The lavish wedding had officially ended, not with a bouquet toss, but with the approaching wail of sirens. I took a deep breath. It was time to leave. I turned my back on the wreckage and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted for me, a 2-meter-wide path, clearing as if by magic. People looked at me with a mixture of fear, awe, and horror. They no longer saw me as the jilted ex-wife. They saw me as a goddess of vengeance. Just as my hand reached for the golden door handle, a new sound cut through the air, a demonic roar. "Amelia!" It was Ethan's voice, but it was no longer pleading. It was the sound of pure, undiluted hatred. The sound of running footsteps, heavy and fast, pounded on the marble floor behind me. He was coming for me. I turned slowly. The sight was a nightmare. Ethan was sprinting across the ballroom. He looked like a wild animal. His suit was torn and bloody, his face swollen and purple, and his eyes were bulging, bloodshot, and filled with madness. In his right hand, he clutched the jagged, broken neck of a wine bottle. "He's got glass!" people screamed. "Run!" But no one got in his way. They cleared a path between the madman and his target. I stood still, not from fear, but from shock at how low a human being could fall. In his broken mind, I was the source of all his ruin. "You killed my baby. You destroyed my life. Die, Amelia. Die with me," he howled, raising the broken bottle high, ready to plunge it into my neck. He was 5 feet away. 3 feet. I could see the veins bulging in his arm. 2 feet. Time stopped. The stench of alcohol and blood hit my face. The sharp glass began its descent, but it never reached me. Crack! The sound of breaking bone was crisp and sickeningly loud. A massive hand in a black suit sleeve had caught Ethan's wrist mid-swing, Mrs. Harrison's security chief. He hadn't just stopped the blow. With a single, brutally efficient twist, he snapped Ethan's wrist. Ethan's roar of rage turned into an unholy scream of pain. The broken bottle clattered to the floor. The security chief kicked the back of Ethan's knee, sending him sprawling face first onto the marble, then pinned him there with a knee to the back of his neck. "Stay down, or I break the other one," he growled. Police sirens grew louder. 4 officers stormed into the ballroom. They took over, yanking Ethan's arms behind his back. Click, click. The sound of handcuffs snapping shut was the perfect closing symphony to his destruction. As they dragged him past me, he fought against them, turning to face me one last time. His voice was a shaking, venomous whisper. "You took everything from me, Amelia. Everything. You think you can live in peace after this? You think you won?" I smiled, a tiny, almost invisible smile. I leaned in close. "Ethan," I whispered gently, "I didn't take anything. I just returned what was never yours. The job belonged to someone competent. The wife belonged to your boss. The child belonged to your lie. The only thing that truly belongs to you now are those handcuffs." "Bitch!" he screamed and spat in my face. The mixture of saliva and blood hit my cheek. The police yanked him away, and I heard a rifle butt connect with his back. I didn't wipe it off. I let it sit there, a warm, disgusting medal of honor, a final testament to the pathetic creature I had once cried over. "I'll be back, Amelia. I'll hunt you down." His voice faded as he was dragged out of the hotel. The ballroom was finally quiet, the hollow silence after a storm. I calmly took a tissue from my clutch and wiped my cheek. The remaining guests avoided my eyes. They knew now. Never, ever cross a woman with nothing left to fear. I walked to the main entrance. The glass doors slid open automatically. The cool night air of New York felt fresh, clean. As the valet brought my car around, a black luxury sedan pulled up in front of me. The rear window slid down. Inside, Mrs. Harrison sat, looking tired but satisfied. "My offer was serious, Amelia," she said. "My office, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Wear red. It suits a leader." The window slid back up, and the car drove off. I looked up at the New York sky. The rain had stopped. A single, stubborn star was visible through a break in the clouds. I got into my car, my body finally relaxing. I let out a long, shuddering breath, expelling 3 years of poison from my lungs, and then I started to laugh. I laughed until my stomach hurt, laughed at the absolute absurdity of it all. I started the engine and pulled away, leaving the cursed hotel and all its ghosts behind me. In my rearview mirror, the magnificent building shrank, swallowed by the night, leaving only a story of how a wedding party became a funeral for pride. Life is an echo. What you send out comes back. What you sow, you reap. And tonight, I was going home with clean hands, a light heart, and a future shining brighter than all the city lights combined.